Kane Rowley built the Holloway Syndicate from the ground up, and Sparks turned the Southmere Kings into a street empire. But when betrayal sparked a brutal war between them, London became a battlefield drenched in secrets, silence, and blood. East London's estates had long been a breeding ground for tension, poverty, and survival by any means necessary. Among these concrete towers and shadowy backstreets, two forces quietly grew into something dangerous. The Holloway Syndicate, born out of a mix of old-school gang structure and cold business acumen, was led by Kane Rowley, a man feared as much for his discipline as for his ruthlessness. He wasn't loud, didn't flaunt wealth or bark orders. Kane preferred silence, strategic silence. When he moved, it was calculated and final. By the time he turned 30, he had buried rivals, paid off police officers, and earned the reputation of a man who never left anything unfinished. Opposing Kane was a newer force, rougher around the edges, but gaining power fast: the Southmere Kings. Formed by a group of childhood friends from Thamesmead, the gang was led by Malik Darby, better known on the streets as Sparks. Sparks wasn't a strategist like Kane. He was a performer, loud, unpredictable, and magnetic. Teens idolized him for his energy, his fearlessness, and the way he filmed flashy Instagram videos while mocking rivals. He didn't grow power through organization. He grew it through influence. While Kane invested in long-term control, Sparks created chaos. And sometimes, chaos works. The tension between these two men didn't begin over territory. It started with blood. 5 years before the war officially began, Kane's younger brother, Jordan Rowley, was found stabbed outside a fried chicken shop in Plumstead. He was only 16. No one claimed responsibility, but Kane had his suspicions. He believed it was a silent message from Southmere, a warning that their new generation wasn't afraid of old names. Kane responded the only way he knew how. He waited. While others demanded retaliation, he built his network stronger. He started buying silence through blackmail, moving heroin through unmarked estates, investing in used car lots that doubled as laundering operations. Sparks, meanwhile, kept growing. Louder, pulling in recruits as young as 13, offering them cash, street cred, and protection in exchange for loyalty. The estate blocks became front lines. North Woolwich, once neutral, became contested land. Graffiti tags turned to gunshots. Cracked phone screens carried orders to ride out. Young boys with no future plans suddenly became foot soldiers in a war they didn't understand. What finally pushed the gangs over the edge was a body. Devontae Clegg, a 17-year-old low-level Southmere member, was found with 2 bullets in his chest in an alley behind a betting shop. He was the kind of kid who never got involved in anything serious. He ran errands, delivered messages, sometimes held extra phones. But to Sparks, he was a brother. The murder sent a shockwave through the streets. Everyone knew this wasn't a random killing. The way Devontae was found, kneeling, arms behind his back, execution style, carried a message. We know who you are, and we're coming. Sparks didn't wait. Within 24 hours, 2 Holloway-affiliated stash houses were burned down. Witnesses said they saw men in motorbike helmets running from the scene, dropping petrol cans as they fled. Sparks made an online post that same night, a story featuring a masked figure pointing to a burning building behind him, tagged only with a skull. Emoji, it went viral in gang circles. Kane didn't respond publicly. He didn't need to. His retaliation came 2 days later, when a known Southmere runner was found duct-taped to a tree near Hackney Marshes, stabbed multiple times. His phone, still in his pocket, had one unread message. This is just the beginning. Police presence increased, but it didn't matter. No one snitched. Fear was louder than sirens. Ambulances became regular visitors to the estates. Teenagers disappeared for days, then returned with black eyes or not at all. Local shopkeepers started closing early. Parents warned their kids to stay indoors after dark. While the public saw these acts as mindless violence, each move was part of a larger game. Kane was methodical. He didn't attack unless it made a statement or sent a warning. Sparks was erratic, but smart in his own way. He knew how to create viral moments that made his enemies feel surrounded even when they weren't. The invisible line between Holloway and Southmere territories began to blur, and with every bullet, every body, that line faded more. This wasn't just a turf war anymore. It was a full-scale conflict driven by revenge, ambition, and the need to be remembered. And beneath it all, something darker was growing. Whispers of betrayal, secret meetings between rivals, and the quiet planning of something that neither Kane nor Sparks could see coming. The streets were talking, and the war had only just begun. The funeral of Devonte Clegg was not just a goodbye, it was a declaration. Over 200 people gathered outside the Southmere estate, many of them wearing black hoodies with Devonte's name stitched in white across the back. His coffin, painted in Southmere's signature deep blue, was carried by 6 gang members, all of them barely out of their teens. Police patrolled the area in marked vans, watching silently as tension thickened like fog over the estate. There were no speeches, no prayers, just silence, then tears, then murmurs of revenge. Devonte's death had ignited something deeper than gang rivalry. He had been harmless, a quiet boy who never bragged or looked for trouble. But now, his name was being chanted like a war cry. Sparks stood at the back, eyes hidden behind sunglasses, his jaw clenched. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Everyone in that crowd knew what came next. That same night, retaliation began. A syndicate stash house in Bow was set on fire, flames lighting up the night sky like a signal. By morning, 2 more drug houses linked to Holloway operations had been torched. Sparks didn't leave fingerprints, but everyone knew who was responsible. For the Southmere Kings, this was payback. For the Holloway syndicate, it was an act of war. Kane Rowley received the news without emotion. He sat in a warehouse office, watching footage of the fires on a tablet screen. No panic, just cold calculation. Then he gave an order, one that shocked even his closest lieutenants. The target wasn't another stash house or some nameless Southmere member. This time, it was personal. Tristan Wallace, known on the streets as Knox, was Sparks' childhood friend and right-hand man. He was level-headed, respected, and seen as the only one who could challenge Sparks' impulsive decisions. He was also a family man. That morning, he was walking his daughter to nursery when 2 masked men on a scooter pulled up. 3 shots rang out. 2 hit Tristan in the back, 1 in the leg. His daughter wasn't harmed, but the streets never forgot what happened. News of the murder spread fast, splashing across headlines. Gang violence claims another victim in East London. The community reacted with fear and outrage, but within Southmere the message was clear. Holloway had crossed a line. Sparks went underground. For days he didn't appear in public, not even to his crew. When he finally resurfaced, he looked different, older, colder. He wasn't just seeking revenge now. He wanted dominance. He gathered his lieutenants and laid out a plan to destroy the syndicate's entire supply chain. If Holloway wanted war, they would get one they couldn't win. But they weren't the only ones preparing for battle. Scotland Yard had been monitoring both gangs for months, and Tristan's murder was the last straw. A task force was formed, Operation Darklight. Headed by Detective Elena Rourke, the unit was made up of surveillance experts, cybercrime analysts, and undercover officers. They started tracing encrypted messages, following financial trails, and analyzing gang-related posts on social media. Rourke wasn't new to gang investigations, but even she was surprised by how organized the 2 groups were. The Holloway Syndicate used burner phones, laundered money through small businesses, and held meetings in coded language. Southmere Kings were less formal but just as effective, using graffiti, encrypted messaging apps, and music videos to spread their influence. Despite growing pressure from the police, the violence didn't stop. In fact, it escalated. One night, a Southmere member was found beaten and chained inside a shipping container near the docks. Days later, a Holloway courier was found shot in the knee and left outside a hospital with a note taped to his chest. More to come. Amid this chaos, something unexpected happened. Kane Rowley disappeared. It started with silence. His regular calls stopped. His lieutenants couldn't reach him. At first they thought he was lying low. Then his car was found abandoned near the Thames, keys still in the ignition, no blood, no signs of struggle. CCTV footage showed Kane entering a parking garage late at night. He never came out. The syndicate was thrown into confusion. With Kane gone, leadership fractured. Reese Carter, his second in command, stepped in, but not everyone trusted him. Rumors spread. Had Kane been taken out by the police? Had he been killed by Sparks? Or was there betrayal within his own crew? Sparks didn't waste time. He increased pressure on Holloway fronts, sending younger members to spray graffiti on Kane's old hideouts, daring them to respond. The police tried to keep up, but for every lead they followed, another 3 crimes emerged. London was caught in a spiral of blood and silence. And as Kane's absence grew longer, the balance of power began to shift. But no one, not even Sparks, knew that Kane wasn't dead. He was watching, waiting, preparing for a return that would change everything. Kane Rowley's disappearance sent a ripple of fear through the entire Holloway syndicate. For over a decade, he had been their anchor, a CR figure of unwavering control and strategy. Without him, the gang felt like a snake without a head, twisting and lashing out in confusion. Reese Carter, Kane's trusted second-in-command, stepped forward to fill the void, but his leadership lacked the weight Kane carried. He was aggressive, impulsive, and too eager to make his mark. Within weeks, factions began forming inside the syndicate. Some believed Kane was dead. Others whispered that he had gone underground, watching the ones who had betrayed him. While the syndicate crumbled from the inside, Sparks pushed harder than ever. He launched nightly attacks on known Holloway fronts. Drug drop-offs were hijacked, lookouts beaten, safe houses vandalized. In one particularly daring move, Southmere members set off fireworks outside a Holloway-run betting shop, luring everyone outside, then raiding the building and torching the back room. It was theatrical, brutal, and effective. Sparks was no longer reacting. He was dominating. But beneath the chaos, something stranger was unfolding. Murders began happening on both sides, unexpected, precise, and unlike the usual gang slayings. These weren't random stabbings or drive-bys. Victims were high-ranking gang members, ambushed in private, executed cleanly, and each time a red playing card was left behind. No message, no claim, just that eerie symbol nailed or tucked onto their bodies. It wasn't Southmere's style, and it didn't match Holloway's methods either. When Reese's most trusted ally, Jermaine "Stitch" Ellis, was found dead. In his apartment, no signs of forced entry, a single bullet to the chest, and a red card placed on his coffee table. Panic erupted in the syndicate. Reese called an emergency meeting with the remaining leaders. He ordered purges, accusing lower-ranking members of betrayal. Dozens were beaten, interrogated, and some disappeared completely. It became clear that Reese was losing control. Detective Elena Rourke and her team in Operation Darklight took notice. Surveillance showed increasing internal disorder within Holloway, while Southmere grew stronger and more organized under Sparks' rule. The red card killings, however, puzzled even Rourke. They didn't match any gang ritual. They were deliberate, precise, and methodical, almost military in style. The killers left no fingerprints, no DNA, no CCTV footage. It was as if a ghost was hunting them from within. Then came the breakthrough. An intercepted encrypted message between Reese and Sparks exposed something no one expected. The two had been in secret communication. Reese, fearing collapse of the syndicate and his own downfall, had proposed a merger with Southmere. His idea was to unite both gangs under one name, the London Order, creating a single dominant criminal force that would stretch across the city, absorbing territories and eliminating all opposition. Sparks, intrigued by the idea of expanding his empire, didn't say no. But he didn't say yes either. He was waiting for leverage. What neither of them realized was that Kane Rowley was still alive. He had gone into hiding after discovering a plot against him. Reese had arranged for Kane's removal with the help of corrupt insiders, hoping to take over the syndicate. Kane, always one step ahead, faked his own disappearance and watched from the shadows as the empire he built was carved up by traitors. The red card killings? They were his. Kane had assembled a small, trusted group of loyalists, men who disappeared from the streets months earlier, former soldiers, ex-gang members, and insiders who owed him everything. They operated silently, taking out Reese's allies one by one, eliminating loose ends and spreading fear through calculated assassinations. No one saw them coming. They didn't wear colors. They didn't talk. They left a red card, a quiet reminder that Kane wasn't gone. He was hunting. As more syndicate members vanished or turned up dead, fear gripped both gangs. Sparks, sensing something unnatural, pulled back from his merger talks with Reese. He stopped appearing in public, surrounded himself with armed guards, and doubled his personal security. His public persona faded, replaced by a paranoid recluse who trusted no one. Reese, cornered and desperate, made a final move. He offered full control of the syndicate's drug routes to Sparks in exchange for protection. But before the deal could be sealed, Reese's convoy was ambushed late at night on the A13. His guards were found dead, stripped of their weapons. Reese's body was discovered in a nearby underpass, 2 bullets to the head and a red playing card nailed to his throat. With Reese gone, the syndicate was leaderless. Southmere, though still intact, had begun to sense something was wrong, something bigger than their fight. Kane Rowley had returned, not to reclaim power, but to destroy everything that betrayed him. His enemies were falling fast, and no one knew who would be next. The war wasn't over. It was entering its most dangerous phase. The city of London, once divided by turf wars and graffiti-scrawled boundaries, now stood on the edge of something far worse. With Reese Carter gone, the Holloway syndicate fractured into smaller, confused groups. Leaders turned against their own crews, territory lines blurred, and paranoia reigned. Every death was blamed on Kane Rowley's invisible hand, and no one felt safe. Even those who once supported Reese in his betrayal began to disappear, as if shadows themselves were swallowing anyone linked to Kane's downfall. Kane had become more than a man. He had become a myth. Rumors filled the estates, each one darker than the last. Some claimed he had turned into a ghost. Others believed he had made a deal with the devil to wipe the streets clean of traitors. In reality, Kane moved with cold precision, unseen but never far. His red card signature became a symbol of dread, and entire corners of the city fell silent under its weight. Where police had failed, Kane was succeeding, through fear, through silence, through control. Southmere, meanwhile, had reached its peak. With Holloway shattered, Sparks had almost no opposition left. His crew expanded fast, absorbing stray syndicate members and taking over key supply routes across East and South London. But success had made him reckless. The luxury cars, the loud videos, the crowded parties, they returned. Sparks believed Kane was done, that the red cards had stopped because the message was complete. But he was wrong. Kane hadn't finished. He had simply saved Sparks for last. What Sparks didn't know was that one of his closest men, Caden Rizzo Blaine, had been working for Kane all along. Rizzo had earned Sparks' trust over years, rising quietly through the ranks, never too flashy, never too ambitious, just loyal enough to be invisible. But Kane had recruited him long before his disappearance, knowing one day the war would end, not with a gunfight, but with betrayal. Rizzo began feeding Kane vital information. Safehouse locations, weapons caches, meeting times. Kane didn't strike immediately. He waited, letting Sparks feel secure, letting him believe he had won. Then, slowly, Kane's plan unfolded. Arms shipments vanished. Drug supplies were intercepted. Southmere's finances started to bleed, with laundered money mysteriously disappearing through false businesses that Kane had quietly infiltrated years ago. Inside Southmere, confusion spread. Sparks grew increasingly paranoid. He began accusing his own lieutenants of betrayal, having phones checked, cars searched, even ordering brutal interrogations of those he once trusted. The vibrant, confident leader had become a shadow of himself, barking orders no one wanted to follow. Rourke and the police were watching everything. Operation Darklight had shifted focus from containment to cleanup. With Reese dead and Sparks unraveling, they saw a rare opportunity to dismantle London's gang networks once and for all. Undercover agents raided money laundering fronts, tapped communications, and moved in on weakened lieutenants willing to cooperate. But Rourke had one problem. She still couldn't find Kane. He never appeared on CCTV. He never used traceable phones. Witnesses who claimed to have seen him turned up dead or vanished. It was as if the city itself had swallowed him whole. But Rourke understood one thing. Kane was guiding the collapse. He wasn't just taking revenge. He was erasing everything connected to the betrayal, including himself. The end came suddenly. One rainy night, Sparks received a call from Rizzo. It was urgent. An old syndicate crew had resurfaced, armed, planning to ambush Southmere's final meeting point. Sparks, always ready for a fight, rounded up his closest men and raced to the abandoned printing factory in Newham, where the crew was supposedly hiding. They arrived to silence. No lights, no voices. Just a red playing card taped to the main gate. Inside, Sparks found nothing but a single chair beneath a flickering light. On the seat was a small flash drive. Against better judgment, he pocketed it and left. Hours later, Sparks disappeared. His phone was found smashed near the Thames. His car abandoned. No body, no witnesses. Only the flash drive, later leaked, anonymously online, showing hidden camera footage of Reese's betrayal, Rizzo's meetings with Kane, and a final clip of Sparks pacing alone in the factory, unaware he was being watched. That video spread fast. Within days, Southmere disbanded. Lieutenants vanished or were arrested. Territory was seized by rival street crews, and police swarmed the estates. The gangs that once ruled East and South London were gone. Detective Rourke stood before a wall of case files, staring at a map littered with red dots. She had dismantled two of London's most dangerous organizations, yet the one man responsible for it all, Kane Rowley, had left no trace, no arrest, no funeral, just silence. In the end, the deadliest gang war in London's history didn't end with gunfire. It ended with precision, betrayal, and a name whispered in fear. Kane Rowley. The man who started the war, and the man who ended it without ever being seen again.